the Orlando Magic. What have you seen from them? Do you think they're actually going to be, a top 4 team in the East or top 5? Or is this kind of fool's gold?
Last season, it was like this team of giants, right? It was a team that gave the Warriors actually a decent amount of issues in the early season. They're still giant. They've gotten more giant, especially with Jonathan Isaac returning. But I think the anchor for them this season has been defense entirely. They're second in the league in defensive rating. The Magic starters are 7th in net rating, and by most catch-all defensive metrics, the NBA or in the NBA, the Magic are like a top 5 defense. So I think we can say with pretty good authority that through the first 20 or so games, the Magic are a top 5 defense, because it's not fluky. It's not based on opponents having poor 3-point shooting. It's that the Magic are actually able to contain both at point of attack, with Jalen Suggs looking very good this year in terms of effort.
Incredible.
With Anthony Black being a good rookie. He's big. He's 6'7", and then obviously Paolo, Franz, Wendell Carter Jr., especially Wendell Carter Jr. and Franz Wagner. So those good anchors combined with the modern defenses just made them good. So we can talk about more, but I think just to speak on defense, that's probably what's been pushing them this year.
Yeah, and I think something that to add to kind of your points, I think they give a lot of teams problems because of the defensive end, because of their size. And we saw that a little bit last year. They had a winning record versus the Celtics last year. I think they went 3-1. And some of the best teams in the leagues they did manage to beat. They're just a horrible matchup. And I think something also I kind of wanted to hit on specifically, and something that's even maybe more important to this team, is the rise of Paolo Banchero, who I think has definitely been the guy that the Magic drafted. Obviously, right now, Chet Holmgren's looking amazing, but it seems like they went to the proper place. It seems like Chet Holmgren went to a team that needs a true center, but Paolo went to a team that kind of needs everything. They need kind of a do-it-all player, a player that can play point guard, a player that can guard centers, a player that can guard power forwards, a player that can also initiate the offense and score in the post. And so I think it's kind of great for that team that they were able to get Paolo, but just because his physicality is just, it's different, to be honest, in the league right now, that there isn't really much physicality shown from the power forward / small forward position. You mostly just see centers. And I think that's why he's been able to kind of extend his game. And I think the 3-point shot coming around for him has also been big. I don't know if it's sustainable, honestly. Yeah. I believe he's shooting well above his career, his averages from last year. He was a poor 3-point shooter last year, if I remember correctly, though, around Paolo, yeah.
I think Paolo.
And I think he was
Paolo's
around
shooting
30% or so
right now, isn't he? I don't know. There was a stretch this season where he was shooting literally 3%, but I mean, regardless, yeah, he doesn't have that in his game, and I think it needs to be there for that, or foul grifting are the next evolution towards becoming like a high usage 4-5, like an Embiid. Obviously not. I'm not saying he's going to become Embiid, but that's the next step: foul grifting, 3-point shot. But yeah, I mean,
I think the big thing
carried over.
Yeah, I think the big thing this year, though, just looking at some of I feel like he's just not attempting them as much as he used to, just because of, I feel like some of this is affected by some of the things you talked about earlier, in that their point guards have been out for a large portion of time in Markelle Fultz, who's important to their offense. Who would have thought, a couple years down the road from being a first overall pick, he's actually a pretty decent player, but that's definitely affected them right now. So I think that's a big deal in this, and why his 3-point percentage maybe has fallen, but definitely something that he can work on.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the big question that I have with the Magic for sustained success does come from their guard rotation. Because I think ultimately Paolo and Franz have both shown that these are reliable anchors for your front court for the next 5-10 years, if you want to keep them. Franz especially, I think people around the NBA were able to recognize how special he was in the first few seasons, but really good ability to play make, to handle in a big, navigate through traffic, pass, play pick and roll, good 3 point, or, career low right now in 3 point shooter, but capable of shooting a three. Just generals, playmaker, floor spacer. It's really amazing to have in someone Franz's size. And yeah, what you said with Paolo. So both of those guys combined, this is like a good front court, right? Like this is a top five front court in the East, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I think just to kind of add some stats to kind of highlight what the how the Magic have been doing, it's definitely been a very mixed bag in terms of certain players have been playing better than you'd think. I think the key stats for me, I know I said Paolo Banchero's been shooting well from three. His 3 point percentage this year is 43%, but it's only on about 2 attempts per game, or actually a little less than 2 attempts per game. So he's not shooting it that much, but when he's shooting it, clearly he's confident in his shot. Franz Wagner, on the other hand, has been shooting less than 30%, which his career average is around 35%, although he's pretty new. But Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, they've both been shooting 35 plus percent. So a lot of the role players have been shooting better this season, which I think definitely contributes. And so I think that's probably a big story for them, is that they play this huge lineup, as you're talking about, and they're all able to kind of shoot the three at least credibly and provide spacing on the court. But
Yeah.
I guess that leads
And
to kind of
that
the
brings
question,
me.
do you think
Mhm.
that just brings me to the question of, do you think they're going to remain a top seed in the East for the extended future? I know personally, I don't think so. I think that probably a 6 seed, 5 seed is their ceiling, honestly, but I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main problem with the Magic comes from their guard rotation. Um, I think the issue with their guard rotation isn't that, you know, Markel Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, etc., are not each individually useful assets that teams would want in the NBA. It's just that if you want to sustain success at the level of like a top three seed in a conference, none of those guys are going to cut it. None of those guys are going to cut it
Yeah.
with the way your team is built. Like, I'm not, and again, so what I mean by this is Markel Fultz resurgence as a playmaker, as a shooter. Cole Anthony discovering his shot this year, being more reliable. Jalen Suggs, amazing on ball defense, hustle defender this year. And Anthony Black looks like a very useful rookie. All of these guys are good, but the problem is you need like a more reliable scorer, more, I think, that the primary is that you need a more reliable scorer, ball handler, um, especially in terms of volume. And I
Yeah.
think that you just have a bunch of guards that aren't to that. And you should try and keep as many of them as you can, but you're not going to be able to if you want to reach like a 3 seed. Um, but I think probably they'll stay in the playoffs for sure. Like, I think they'll stay top eight.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely a playoff team. I think the important comparison to me here is, are they just a better Knicks, or or is this kind of fool's gold? Because I think when you look at this team, what you see here is a team that's defensively minded and a team that struggles on the offensive end, very similar to the Knicks. But they don't have kind of this selfish player that is Julius Randle, who kind of just takes shots. He's not actually that efficient,
Or
and
Jalen
he's not like the
Brunson.
star
Jalen
player.
Brunson's a really
Yeah, Jalen Brunson's
creative.
obviously, yeah, and that's something that they need. But if they have Paolo be a better version of Julius Randle, which is what he's touted to be, honestly, is probably his best player comparison, then I think they can be better than the Knicks, which I think would put them at the 4 seed. So I think that's what we're kind of waiting to see this season. And I think Wendell Carter Jr. is also very slept on in the league. I think he's one of the better bigs in the league, able to space the floor. He doesn't get enough love, I feel like, just because they are the Orlando Magic. And I think he's definitely above Mitchell Robinson, or at least at Mitchell Robinson's level. So I think I'm going to be watching them and comparing them to the Knicks throughout the season. I think when you guys watch definitely try and compare them to the Knicks because I feel like that's probably their best comparison in the Eastern Conference and a team that they can potentially jump if Paolo it continues with the leap he's taking.
Yeah, I mean, if I could characterize this in terms of like floor ceiling, for me, when you lack like a reliable punch, like a reliable punching scorer, ball handler, 3-point shooter, um, your floor to me goes to like, I don't know. I think I put 8 to 10, but like, well, we'll say like 9. There is not, I don't think there is, yeah, like, I don't think it's impossible that this season there is a severe, even a mild regression that would put the Magic down to like 8. I don't think that's impossible because I think
Mhm.
that this guard rotation is probably not reliable enough for like playoff success. And if you're not reliable for playoff success, I think that's like 7,
Mm.
8. But but Palace having a really good year. Franz is on the up and up. The Orlando's finding
Yeah.
creative ways to run offenses through them and run offenses with these bigs, like in these two-man games, with Cole Anthony being a lot better. Um, so floor
Yeah.
8, ceiling for me is 4th seed, and then my prediction, I would say, I put 6. I'll go 5th seed. 5th seed
Yeah, I think I'd go
next.
f yeah. I think the 5th seed's a good place to kinda cut it off at just because I think because they are so young and they've dealt with injuries well this season, it feels like they can be a good regular season team. If we talk about the postseason, I think that's completely different.